So what I can talk about are 19th century bottles, ammonia bottles from the San Francisco Bay Area, all the way from the beginning to basically 1900. And what you see here is the primary manufacturer of ammonia bottles in the 19th century, the San Francisco Gas Light Company, structure shown here, built in 1893. And a few examples of ammonia bottles from that company are shown here, embossed ammonia bottles from that company. And they're also in the cabinet there, quite a few of them. This is kind of a selection of the range of colors that come in. It's not exhaustive. You'll see more in the presentation, but it gives you kind of an idea of the wide range of colors that they come in. So, to give you a little bit of background, the first, so the San Francisco Gas Light Company, its primary product was energy in the form of coal gas for lighting, heating, cooking. And basically, in the process of making coal gas, they also created a large amount of residue, various chemicals, and I'll talk about that in a moment here, how it relates to the ammonia that they ultimately produced. But the San Francisco Gas Company, which was the very first name of the company, was located basically over here. The Golden Gate Bridge is up in that direction, and you got a well-known highway here going across to the mainland there. And basically, right where that square is was where the original San Francisco Gas Company was located in 1853. It was incorporated in 1850 and started producing coal gas for the growing city or town of San Francisco at the time. And the idea was basically that the Donahue team, the father and son team, got the idea that they saw from the East Coast that coal gas was used for lighting and stuff, and so they figured, well, San Francisco's growing, let's start making it for San Francisco. And that's how coal gas started on the West Coast. Basically, it was first location here in San Francisco in 1853. Now, it turned out to be quite popular. I mean, they started initially lighting the streets and stuff, and then it became a heating source and cooking and so on. But it became real popular, and after 1853, and other companies came online in San Francisco, the City Gas and Metropolitan Gas Company. And then in 1873, the San Francisco Gas Company bought them up and grew even larger to form what we now know as the San Francisco Gas Light Company. So that's how the San Francisco Gas Light Company came into being. And at that time, again, the San Francisco Gas Light Company, its main product was coal gas, for lighting and heating and stuff. But they produced a lot of residue, various chemicals, coal tar, sulfur compounds, carbonic acid, and ammonia. And so at the time, they had no use for it. It was a refuse, and so they started dumping it nearby. And I should mention, in this map right here, the company here is bordered by Howard Street, Fremont Street, and basically in the Thomas Street and Soda Street. So anyway, it's right here. So at the time, Fremont Street was the shoreline in San Francisco. Now it's not. I mean, basically the shoreline is way over here. But at that time, it was nice and convenient to have the Gas Light Company right at the shoreline there, because then coal from Australia could be brought in real easily and just brought to the company. But in the process of making the coal gas, they had all this refuse, and so they started dumping it in the kind of the shallow inlet there. And by the time 1867, that inlet was pretty nearly full of all this stuff that they dumped there. And so kind of created was going to be a problem. But fortunately, they heard from the East Coast and Europe and stuff that this refuse that they'd been dumping had actually quite a large amount of value. For example, the coal tar could be used for treating wood, so that it doesn't rot, and paints, and carbonic acid for pharmaceutical products, and then of course the ammonia it turned out had its cleaning properties, and that was why it was initially produced, was for its cleaning properties. Scale on metal surfaces in boilers and whatnot, and cleaning clothes. So that that was about 1867 when it kind of dawned on the Donahue family there that it could be an additional source of revenue for the company. And so their primary motive was to produce energy in the form of coal gas, but they had this residue, they might as well make a profit for it too. And so they got into the ammonia business, and they also sold coal tar and a few other chemicals that were the byproduct of the coal gas manufacture. So what they did initially is they invited the public and farmers and industry to come over to their gasworks location and try samples, see if they liked it, for cleaning and whatnot. And that turned out to be very popular. In fact, initially they farmed out the chemicals to chemical companies and stuff like that. But later on, they got into the business of manufacturing it themselves and bottling it. Now, in 1867, a company by the name of Pacific Chemical Works came into being, and basically they were taking chemicals from the San Francisco Gas Company at the time, and they were taking them and basically bottling them and selling them to the public, including ammonia liqueur. And ammonia liqueur is basically 5% ammonia, basically integrated with water, mixed in with water. So your ammonia today is really ammonia gas, maybe 5% or thereabouts, mixed with water. And so that's what ammonia liqueur is. Now at the time, I've seen old newspaper accounts where they talk about these chemicals being bottled. And so I've not seen or heard of any company name on a bottle, Pacific Chemical Works. So it likely was an unembossed bottle at the time that they just slapped a label on. Depending upon what drug or what chemical it was a different label. So, and typical for chemical bottles at the time, they're cylindrical shape, and I believe this was the impetus for why the West Coast ammonia bottles tend to be cylindrical in shape, various sizes and stuff. East Coast, you get a variety of different shapes of ammonia bottles, but I believe one of the reasons was initially they were repurposing chemical bottles at the time, and so that was kind of the start of it. But right about 1868, the San Francisco Gas Company got the idea of well, why don't we bring this engineer from New York in, and by the name of James Smedberg, and why not have him modify our facility to produce and bottle ammonia at their site? And so they did, and so in 1870, the earliest documented evidence of the gas company, San Francisco Gas Company manufacturing ammonia was in 1870. And in 1871, they displayed their product at a tech fair at the time, basically produced by the Mechanics Institute. And so the first evidence of them mentioning bottling their ammonia and with a label on it was in 1871. And they also produced it in other forms of containers like cans, and shown here for coal oil, but also for ammonia, as you can see here, and other chemicals that came from the gas company. Now, the first, as I mentioned earlier, in 1873, the San Francisco Gas Light Company came into being, and then they talked about pint size, quart size, and half-gallon size, and I believe just based upon the evidence that you'll see, initially they were labeled bottles, labeled cylindrical shaped bottles, chemical bottles, in pint-sized quarts and half gallons. And we found, diggers have found these, in that sizes, and they're typically cylindrical in shape, and I'll show you examples more later. So that was kind of the impetus, and I think, I'm not sure. So here's some examples. This is an old photograph from 1871 or 1879 of the San Francisco and Pacific Glass Works industrial fair display, where they were displaying their glass works at the time. And you can see in the picture there an ammonia style bottle right here, a cylindrical shaped bottle, quart size, looks like a double ring, kind of like these ones here that are actual bottles that you'll see more of later. And two different colors, but they came in a wide range of colors. And I believe, the reason they came in a wide range of colors is no one cared, what the color of the bottle was. They just wanted the most product out of it. So, and it was cost thing also. If you had an existing batch of glass, it's cheaper just to use that existing batch of glass rather than make a whole new batch, for your bottles. So these are quart-size ammonia bottles here, and here's a half gallon shown here. And you can see it up here, it's in the picture, a half gallon is shown here. And also, so this is San Francisco and Pacific Glass Works photo. I've also seen pictures of the San Francisco Glass Works Company, which went from 1870 to 1875, which also shows similar pictures. So these ammonia bottles could easily go back to 1870, and I believe go back to about 1870, or excuse me, 1867, 1868 in that time frame, in terms of age. So, with that in mind, here's kind of a wide range of colors that they come in. As you can see, there's all kinds of different colors and various styles of tops. Fly tops here with the little drippy glass there, tool tops, double rings, square rings, and block tops, tool top. Tool top, of course, is not basically made in one whole piece, as opposed to applied later with the lip. But what's interesting here, and there's also a pint size up here, a little pint size. All the rest of these are quart size. So now, if you look at the bases of these bottles, normally they're plain, or they maybe have a kick up in the base. Some of them they'll have OGW on the base, or some of them have this kind of cross with dots. Of the older ones I'm talking about. I've never really seen any other kind of base embossing. OGW stands for Oakland Glass Works, 1884, I think it was 1884 to 1885 time frame where they were produced. And it basically, all these bottles from here to the right are OGW base embossed ammonia bottles.
Have you all your bottles, Steve?
Yes.
Is that all you got?
No, it's not like you can't put them all on the shelf here, so
That's live. So it's the one that almost looks like a
No
shared
wonder
list.
I can't find it.
The green one that almost looks like a shared.
This one here?
Is that bottle up on one of those shelves?
Yes, that is, let's see, this one right here. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so, and I apologize for the graininess of the picture, but I get the idea. And a lot of them come two-tone, like this is a green lip with a yellow bottle, or olive and green. It's whatever they had, whatever class they had at the time, basically used.
How many months have you been collecting these?
Well, let's see, 12 times, quite a while.
Look at the swirls in
Yes.
the second row.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one, and this one here.
You didn't bring those bottles with you, did you?
No, I only brought these right here. So, but they're beautiful bottles. There's, of course, the cruder the better for a bottle collector. And they're all handmade. That's what's so nice about them. And so they're all different. And we love the rookie glass blowers, for their crude and sloppy bottles. So, and there were a lot of them who made ammonia. With that in mind, and I should mention they come in mostly the older ones are 2-piece mold, the newer ones like 1890s 3-piece mold. And These date from the 1860s, you know, for the early ones like, well, let's see, like this one here, which is right, well, somewhere up here. But 1860s, I believe, late 1860s to the 1890s is what, or kind of the age range for these bottles. And what's interesting is this base embossed one here. Whenever you see that, they're usually really, really crude. They have a lot of stipple on them. They're just a very crudely made bottle. And I don't know why. I haven't been able to figure out why that particular bottle base with mold, the glass is made crude.
Are any of them bottled at all?
No, no pump. This is all
Because we have some with kick-ups that are
Right.
pretty suspicious.
Yeah, they're all, they're kick-ups, but they're all kind of post 1867, 1868, so they wouldn't have any.
You might have had an old timer that refused to switch to a snack case.
Well, yeah, that's true. In fact, you'll find that some of these bottles, like you know, a tool top one here and an apply top, roughly at the same time frame, depending upon the glass blower, what his comfort level was, he would make either one. So, and in fact, we've seen that with Oakland Glassworks bottles. You'll see tool top and apply top in the same 1 year time frame. So it's kind of the whim of the glass blower. So an interesting date occurred in 1974. Two guys by the name of Ken Craig and Gary Venturini dug a pit in Santa Cruz. And out of that pit, it was amazing. It was probably the most unembossed ammonia bottles ever found out of one pit. Basically, 17 unembossed ammonia bottles came out of it. All different colors, like cobalt blue, and different style tops, swirls, a lot of that swirls, just real crude. And you see that the hull that came out of this 1 3 foot by 3 foot by 5 foot pit. It was just packed. And here's kind of a list of what came out of it. Crown shoulder flasks, which are 1870s in age. Various other cutter flasks here. Rosenbaum bitters, London jockey clubs, Boulder schnapps with graphite panels. So it's kind of indicated it probably went back in the late 1860s. Texas Glass Works, and a whole host of other ones here, Hofstadter's, and then 17 ammonia bottles, which was the most unembossed, or most number of unembossed ammonia bottles that came out of one pit that I know of.
Steve?
Yeah.
What kind of building was there? Do they know?
So, it likely, I never, unfortunately, Gary, I tried to contact Gary before this seminar, and he's passed on, so I wasn't able to find out.
It was the lime kilns.
The lime kilns.
Yeah.
It was like a bunkhouse, wasn't it?
Might have been a boarding house. It's hard to say.
It was the bunkhouse for the lime kilns.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see later an embossed version of this where it was a boarding house. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Hey Steve, what tops? Do you know the range of tops? If they're all double collars or square collars? If there's any donuts?
Unfortunately, I don't. I mean, the only photographic evidence I have, and this is a scanned,
Yeah.
traditional photograph, is this. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk to Gary, and I don't know Ken Craig, so hard to say.
You can't tell when you zoom in.
No, this has actually been enhanced to try to clarify a little bit better, but I can't. Well, you might be able to see, maybe some of these, you might be able to see a little blob or something, but it's too hard to tell, unfortunately. It was before the age of digital cameras, so. So, as you saw there, that pit was 1860s, 1870s. I believe that the San Francisco Gas Company put their, ammonia in their pint and gallon, pint and quart and half gallon bottles. They were unembossed at the time, the late 1870s. And at some point, the demand was so large that they had to make more molds to keep up with the demand. And maybe the molds wore out for the unembossed ammonia bottle molds. And so at some point, they made their own embossed version, because they were San Francisco Gas Light Company at that time, from 1873 on. But there's probably a transition, and the only known labeled ammonia bottle from the San Francisco Gas Light Company is shown here. This bottle was found in the wall of a very famous San Francisco building that was made around the early 1880s. And so you can see this label here, and here's the trademark that was published in 1884. What's interesting is they say they were using this trademark all the way back to 1881. So that would mean that these bottles here probably could go as early as 1881 labeled. I believe the embossed versions were either at that same year or thereafter with embossed, because once they had more demand, they made more molds and they put their company name on it. So that was very interesting. And again, that came out of the wall of a San Francisco house. And so so this is one of the oldest quart size, and it is a quart size. It's kind of deceiving because it's a tall bottle, but the diameter is narrower than the quart bottles that came afterwards from the same company, and those are smaller in height. So this is a quart size, and as you can see, they come in three shades of blue to aqua, and the dark cobalt one is shown in the display there. They're pretty tough to get in dark cobalt, and they're more desirable because of the color and everything. The more common this large size extended base, and I should mention that there's a line around here where you can tell the mold. They added a base that extended its height. But this is the more common one you find, and even then, there's not a lot of them. And then the aqua here is pretty scarce also. Now, if you look at where there's you can't probably see it too well here, but there's a line around here, right around this location here, where they added a base in the mold to extend the height of the bottle. What's interesting is that from there up, if you look at the unembossed ammonia bottles, they're one's the exact same diameter, same shoulder style, everything. So it's almost, I believe what happened is in the very beginning, this is the first embossed version, and so they probably took existing molds from the unembossed ammonia for ammonia bottles and slapped them together and made this new extended base version. And I believe they did that because molds were expensive to make at the time, and it made sense to just reuse what you already had. So, and then they, of course, put in the embossing into the mold. So this is probably one of the earliest, this is the earliest quart size. It's a transition bottle. You'll see later there's a pint size that I believe also is equally old, and I'll show that in a little bit. But these bottles have been found with Eastern Cider Company soda bottles, which range from about 1877, 1882 in age. So this kind of places these, in the late 1870s at the earliest to early 1880s in age, based upon what evidence we have thus far. So here, this pink one here is in the cabinet. Here's kind of a medium to dark pink, and the light, and you can't really tell here, but this is kind of a light amethyst, and then clear. I'm going to go through all the various colors and stuff that are seen with the embossed San Francisco Gaslight bottles, and just to kind of show you the range of these things coming. And what's interesting is, this finding, this pink right here is very unusual in bottles on the West. In this particular example, shown here is the only one known. I believe the other two are damaged, that are known, of the three known. You'll find more of these light amethyst ones with, I believe they're less than 6 known to my knowledge. Clear ones are also pretty scarce, less than 6 known. Now the question comes up, and something that's really important to Western bottle collectors is, where was it made? Was it made in a Western glass house? And I believe these all were. These all shown here, and ones I'll be showing you. And the reason I believe that is in 1871, the San Francisco San Francisco Glass Works was advertising purple glass. They were making purple glass. They call it purple. That's kind of what this is, kind of a light amethyst. And this is kind of more cranberry, but it's kind of purple-like. But 1871 was before the Gaslight Company came into being. But the San Francisco San Francisco and Pacific Glass Works also made purple glass and flint glass, and green and blue and amber. I believe, you know, that the San Francisco and Pacific Glass Works, it was the manufacturer for all these embossed gaslight bottles and the ones you'll be seeing on the following charts. In fact, here's an ad where they're advertising for flint glass. And flint glass is clear glass, you know, was made clear, but in the process of adding chemicals to make it clear, sometimes they overdid it and it was made, you know, a purple or kind of a pink color, just due to extra chemicals. So it's not unheard of to get these, you know, with some glass floor that made a batch glass and put a little bit too much of the ingredient in to make it clear, which ultimately made it purple. And if you look at the time frames, you know, so the San Francisco Gaslight Company was in business from 1873 to, as you'll see, 1893. They got out of the ammonia business. So that's a perfect time frame here for the San Francisco and Pacific Glass Works. And there were other glass works here, the Oakland Glass Works, that made ammonia bottles, but they usually have their base, you know, the embossing on the base. And I've never seen any embossed gaslight bottles with OGW on the base. So they probably weren't the manufacturer of this. And these others could have, but they were short duration. You know, these ammonia bottles were made for quite a while there. So, and the only glass house that was, you know, covered that whole time was the one shown in red here. And I believe, you know, based upon that evidence, it's most likely they made these bottles. And the ones I'll show you here. So that was paint. Now they come in greens too, dark kind of a forest green, and then I should actually mention one thing. You notice here they come in two different mold styles. One with kind of a slugged out region where it says ammonia, and then the other that has no slugged out at all. But this one has like a reverse L on the back, or on the base, I should say. And so you notice here these are very similar colors, and I believe you'll see later. You'll see it in green, you'll see it in amber, you see it in yellows, identical colors, two different molds. That kind of lends me to believe that it was one glass house, you know, they had a batch glass and they probably had these molds available and they took out, you know, the same batch glass, you know, to make the bottles. And that's why you would get these two different molds with the same color of glass. So if you look, for example, here again, you see it, you know, L on the base, you know, and then repaired one here, and so, well, actually L on base here, and then repaired one. Identical colors of green, two different molds. And I've not seen a repaired one for this dark forest green, but you do see over here, you know, the light kind of pea green. You see repaired over here, and the non-repaired here with the L on base. Such identical colors.
Do you have a theory on the reason for the repair?
Yeah, so my thought was, you know, cost was everything, especially in the beginning when they had a growing, you know, customer base. So my theory is molds were expensive. So they probably made this batch of molds, probably Rookie made it, and misspelled ammonia or had a reverse end or something like that. And rather than throw them out and make a whole new set of molds, they probably just took those molds, you know, some supervisor probably got on the Rookie there to fix this mess and repair the molds and then give them to the company, the glass house, to make the bottles. That's kind of what I think. There's no evidence from the Gaslight Company of any other name in that location. It makes sense that it was just a mistake in the molds, and they repaired it just because it was lower cost to do that than make a whole new set of molds. That's my opinion.
The L on the base, what's that stand?
Well, no one knows for sure. I've heard people speculate it's liter. You know, the liter is equal to about 1 quart, but it's hard to say. No one knows for sure. So that's
Steve, have you ever seen this shade of green in ply?
the dark one.
Yeah, even those first three.
No, you know what? I really haven't. I've never seen an applied version of this color green or any of these. Yeah.
How about any of the colored ones applied, period, have you seen?
Yes, I'll show you.
Except
some
for the
examples.
aqua.
Yeah.
You got one from me?
Yeah, I got one from Dale, that I'll show you, I'll get to soon. Now, so those are the greens. Here, teal colors, there's one in the cabinet there. Only one known of each of these. And it's kind of interesting, they have two different style tops here. Very, very rare, and they have, it's interesting that here again, you got the repaired, you got the non-repaired, and it's essentially identical seal colors. Another case of probably had one batch of glass and 2 molds to make the bottles. A very rare one, with the only one known, is a sapphire. You saw the extended base cobalt ones earlier, but in this smaller quart size, there's one known with a sapphire color, and it has an L on the base. And then you got the more common color here, and this one has just gazillion bubbles in it, seed bubbles. And this is a applied top, so aquas come in applied top, and they come tool top. And I believe it was just the whim of the glass blower at the time. Yeah, so that's that. So here's yellow. And this one over here is applied top. Yeah, so that's an applied top, very little, very nice, no, L on the base. And then over here you see again, repaired, and basically 2 repairs here, just kind of different shades of yellow. And then a very nice lemon colored one, who someone very close provided to me.
Your best friend for an expert.
Yeah, so that's actually very, very rare. This light kind of lemon yellow color. It's very, very beautiful bottle. So this is kind of when you see a yellow ammonia, it's usually one of these colors here, one of these shades of yellow. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the Oakland Glass Works, from 1884 to 1885, did both applied, like this one's applied, and this one's also applied also, and tools here. So,
Steve?
Yeah.
How do you explain the really fuzzy, faint embossing on the second one from the?
Yeah, well, you look at, this one is not faint, this one is. I just think it's underblown, my opinion, because I don't think it was in the mold. It could have been in the mold, but they probably had quite a few molds at a time. They were making this in large quantity. Could have been a weak mold, but it probably was more likely just not fully blown out into the mold. Yeah, exactly. Probably a rookie, or another rookie mistake there. So here's amber. So this one has thousands and thousands of seed bubbles, and this is the darkest one. Surprisingly, getting them real dark amber is pretty rare. And this is tool top, not only 2 known that I know of, and then this lighter one with a bunch of seed bubbles in it. And then you get the more common kind of amber. Here again, repaired, not repaired with L, just very similar color. And this oddball here that I didn't know what category to put it in. But it's pretty rare. These are fairly rare in that color. More common here, and rare in this very dark amber color. So, I mentioned earlier about the unembossed ammonia pit. This is the embossed ammonia pit. And out of this pit came basically 16 different San Francisco Gaslight bottles. And of those, there were 10 different colors.
Wow.
And furthermore, there were several unique ones. These ones here that I talked about earlier, one known for each of these, came out of that pit. And along with these others here, and then a slight amethyst one over here. And as you can see the ammonia's there, and you can see the liquor items there that also came out. This was a boarding house pit. So, they probably had people, tenants come in with their liquor and whatnot, and dumped it in the pit, and then when they left, they had to clean the place, and probably use ammonia to clean it. So, this was a definite boarding house pit, according to Aaron. And by the way, it was Aaron Hill and Terry Adams that dug this pit in basically 1990s. And there were also, basically the liquor items here were nabob and cutter items, consistent with kind of a early 1880s, maybe late 1870s at the earliest kind of age. And one yellow OGW, Days of Boss. So that was a very good pit, and to my knowledge, it's not been repeated since. So I mentioned earlier about the pint size. These are the pint size bottles. One of them's shown in the display there, this one over here. Absolutely the best pristine Western glass ball that I've ever seen. Thank you, Dale. And I mean, you'll see it in there. It is hammer whittle. It's just bold embossing. It's just a beautiful bottle. All of these are applied that I know of. I believe these are the same age as the extended base. And what's interesting is they put the instructions on how to use the product. And this is back, this lends me to believe that they're as old as the extended base. And why would they put the instructions on it? Well, if you're starting up an ammonia business and you've got a buyer out there that's using it, you don't want them to hurt themselves and sour on your product. So the way you help them out is you tell them how to use it, so that they'll be happy with the product and come back and buy more. So, and that was in the beginning, when using ammonia for cleaning and stuff, it's a fairly new idea. So these pint size, and there's only pint size because pint size was the smallest size at the time. And you figure, if you're going to start a new product or start this product, a new user, you're going to want to start with small size, and then if you're happy with it, you go to large size. You never see these instructions on the larger size quarts and half gallons. And so what's interesting here is the range of colors. The CD one over here, it's in a more common aqua color that you find these in. And very, very few of these in this color, but only one in this real crude. This is a real spectacular example. They come in a kind of a sapphire blue, and an emerald green, and a kind of a smoky color. It's the only one I've seen in the smoky color. John Lawson, where are you? Thank you for that. And then they come in two different style tops for the kind of the emerald green, the double ring and the square ring. But very, very few of these in off color. Most of them are aqua. If you talk to a lot of people, most of people have never seen anything other than aqua with these bottles. They're very tough to get anything other than that.
Steve, that's probably one of the prettiest sets of bottles I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, they're just beautiful bottles, beautiful works of art. This is why we like this hobby. So this is a bit later product. This is half pint, and even here, it's a little bit later, so you're not going to get the range of colors and stuff like you get in the earlier glass bottles. But these are, these come in typical yellows and greens, and some really crude. And this one here is amazing. It has a long neck, and it has a plied ring at the very top. It's another rookie-made bottle, I'm sure. And had a little problem blowing it in the base, so it kind of folded and everything. And then you get them with streaks in here, amber streaks, or usually yellow streaks and stuff, or they come, completely yellow, or this kind of greenish, and this greenish one's over here in the cabinet. But again, fairly rare, or fairly, it's difficult to get them out of aqua, which is a common color. And the cruder the better, typically.
Yeah, Steve, just an observation. Do you think some of the glass blowers in this early day in San Francisco glass blowers were probably kids?
Right.
Well, no doubt,
They
no
were.
doubt,
Yeah.
Just people, art
Good
people,
call.
they need a job, and, we're learning, and could have been kids, could have been older people. Yeah. So here's this chart shows kind of the odd tops you get with these bottles. Some of them come with an inside screw and have a square lip, and they actually have like a rubber, cork that goes in. Some of them almost look like a milk bottle. The mouth is so wide, in shape. They come in aqua and amber. Pretty tough to get them in this style with the pipe mouth. And some of them come with a big kind of almost wine saucer size, double ring top. And then the other one here, it's almost like a tube. Again, another rookie glass blower probably that day that didn't quite form the square ring, something like that on this bottle. So these are quart size, and then the pint and the half pint here. But this kind of shows you kind of the range, of different style tops over the years that this company made bottles. So about the late 1880s, the San Francisco Gas Light Company started improving the efficiency of their process for making gas, you know, for lighting and heating and so on. And also, I should mention refrigeration for beer makers and stuff like that, you know, making ice and whatnot. Started using ammonia for that also, so that was another use of it. But late 1880s, petroleum started becoming available, and they made a kind of a petroleum version of this gas, this lighting illumination gas. And so that process was much more efficient, didn't produce ammonia. So about late 1880s, the San Francisco Gas Light Company was transitioning to that more efficient process and started producing less ammonia. And so by 1893, they totally had converted over and weren't producing ammonia anymore out of their facility. And they were primarily an energy supply company, you know. So the ammonia was just a side product or side business, you know, when they had it as a residue from the coal gas manufacturing process. But about that time, late 1892, a company called Pacific Ammonia Bottling Company started buying up the liqueur, ammonia liqueur from the gas light company, and they started producing more and more. You know, they bottled it and sold it as Greer's ammonia that we have today out of the bottle. And you see here basically some of the ads. They were the successors to the San Francisco Gas Light Company. They even stated it here in their ad, and they were buying up all the liqueur. And eventually, when the San Francisco Gas Light Company wasn't producing any more ammonia liqueur, they had to form their own new company, Pacific Ammonia Chemical Company, to make the ammonia and bottle it. And they made bluing and other things at that point. But these are some of the ads here. And about that time, 1894, other companies started getting involved for making ammonia. It's a very lucrative business. You have the California Ammonia Works, which was part of the Pacific Bone Coal and Fertilizer Company. Amazingly, you can make ammonia out of bone material. So this company would gather all the bone material that people dump it at their site, convert it into ammonia and sell it. And Wellman Tech was another one that you've seen in spice bottles, WP. Same Wellman Tech eventually got into ammonia production. And looking at the Greer's bottles, even though it's a 1892 plus, you know, age bottle, they come in a range of colors. This one here is by far the best one I have ever seen. It's full of sea bubbles. It's a tool top, but it's just the crudest bottle and a very beautiful bottle to look at. Unfortunately, I don't own that. But I'd love to. But it's very beautiful. And the others, you know, sometimes you get them in a bottle with a hammer whittle, and usually, you know, you get them two different style tops, double rings, and single blob top. Sometimes they come yellow, and sometimes here's some more common color for the this is quartz right here. The half pints are typically a light kind of pale aqua. Occasionally, or only once that I know of, you come across a light sapphire colored bottle that's shown in the case here. And thank you, Andrew. I've only seen one of that kind of light color, and it's really crude, hammer whittles. It's very crude bottle. And basically, you know, the Greer company, you know, they were the dominant ammonia manufacturer. There were other companies, you know, Wellman Tech and California Ammonia Works, but they were the dominant one, and in the San Francisco Bay Area. But then in the 1906 earthquake, it leveled the Pacific Ammonia and Chemical Company to the ground, and they basically Robert Greer took his business up to Seattle and started it up there. The Pacific Ammonia Bottling Company, historical records show it was still there. They may have had a little bit of operation there, but Robert Greer moved up to Seattle and started his business up there. And he continued that business to about 1934 until basically a Chinese investor came in and bought the whole company and took it apart to the ground and moved it to Shanghai.
Wow.
So that's how the Greer company, or the Pacific Ammonia Chemical Company, disappeared from West Coast. So I didn't talk earlier, the half-gallon sizes. I believe the early ones, you know, in the 1870s, for, you know, where ammonia was being, in the 1860s, basically late 1860s, 1870s was this style. 1870 style here with the top was most likely this style. This is also used in mining, chemical acids and stuff for mining, and likely was also used to contain, you know, ammonia, which is also in high concentration is caustic. We would eat cork and stuff, so they probably had glass stoppers and whatnot. And this actually was found in Washoe City, locally here, as part of amongst 1870s age liquor bottles and stuff. So even though it's tool top, it's an old tool top, 1870s age. And if you go down to the State Museum here in Nevada, you'll see two of them as part of their mining display there. They're still pretty scarce though. And then late 1870s, more likely 1880s, the half gallon, these are pretty scarce. And then 1890s, the Greers came into being, and they come in half gallon also. They're pretty scarce though, not very many out there. Now, the other manufacturers, I mentioned the California Ammonia Works. They actually produced 3 different style bottles. Kind of a quart size here, a pint size, and another quart size, which must have been, I don't know why they had 2 different quart size bottles, but it may have been, you know, a more refined product or something different about the chemical in the bottle. And then there was also the Wilman Peck, or excuse me, the Wilman Peck ammonia bottle shown here. And I only showed ones that are embossed ammonia. There may be other ones that have a company name that don't have ammonia on it. But what's interesting is this is an applied top. Even though this is like 1890-ish, 93, 94, it was applied top. These are all applied top that I'm aware of. Not so for the pint size. This one here, normally pretty plain, but this one just hammer whittled, which is unusual for that era bottle. So, and there were other ammonia companies that I have not seen any bottles from shown here at the time. So last chart here is just as in the very beginning, chemical bottles were repurposed to contain ammonia. Well, ammonia bottles later on were repurposed also to sell liquor. And now, of course, if you buy liquor, you're probably not going to want to have it embossed ammonia, you know, on the side of it.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be for sale. So they covered it with wicker and slapped their label on it. And here are several Western liquor manufacturers with wicker around the ammonia bottle. And so that's it.
I always wondered why they put something with it. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
I never
yeah.
thought of that.
Yeah, if they said ammonia, who's gonna want to buy it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of them, you know, we found a lot of them where you take it off and it says abscess gas like that. Some of them don't, but a lot of them, most of them do, you know. So, but these are, all 4 of these are Western liquor manufacturers, and this one here that Jeff Cushman owns. And with that, do you have any questions or comments or anything, information? I have some cards there that you want to take with you. So.
Thanks, Steve.
I have a question, Steve. So, are there any repros that people should be watching for, or
Not that I'm-
how would they identify? Okay.
I've not heard of any Chinese repros or any of the repros.
Okay.
Not so, you know, with rakes and other barrels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
barrel bitters.
Did I just?
Not yet. Maybe after this.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What are the value ranges on these bottles?
Okay, well, they can range anywhere from 8 to 10,000 to $50. It kind of depends upon the rarity, the color, and yeah, embossing helps. So, I mean, if you're talking about, you know, one node, yeah, it's probably up on the high end. If you're talking about, you know, green ones like I showed earlier, couple grand. You know, kind of
Would you sell it for a couple grand?
no.
Sell it for 10 grand?
No. There you go.
20 grand?
No.
That's perfect.
What got you into these collection of these bottles?
Color.
Are you from San Francisco?
Color? No, well, I'm from California, raised about, before I went to college, but 19 or 19. But, you know, I started off collecting amber whiskeys, and, you know, you get a lot of amber whiskeys, they all kind of look the same. And so I went into color stuff, bitters, ammonias, medicines, the whole gamut there. I collect all West Coast and Cold Brush. So that's how that happened. And it's hard to beat the color range of these bottles. It's amazing.
Steve, on the Greers, I think all the ones you showed were tooled top. Are there any applied?
Yeah, all
size?
tools. Yeah, even that really foamy one is all tools. They're all post 1892.
Okay.
The shape of these is so similar to the USA hospital.
Yes.
Is there any relationship at all with that?
No, I believe the shape was an outgrowth of the fact that like Pacific Chemical Works had chemical bottles at the time, and that it was typical cylindrical, you know, kind of probably had glass stopper or not, but it was cylindrical in shape product bottle. And I believe that, you know, all the future companies just kept it, you know, on the West Coast. It's not true on the East Coast. I mean, you'll get different shaped bottles. Some may be cylindrical shape, but very few are. Most of them are kind of oddball shape, flash shape, and so on, for whatever reason. And it may be because they were like independent, not associated with one another. Whereas here, you know, there was a kind of progression, you know, from one company to the next, and they probably kept that. And it also, you want to keep uniformity. You don't want to make a bottle that's unusual, especially you don't want to put, you know, ammonia in whiskey bottles or medicine shaped bottles or something, because, you know, it'll hurt the public and it'll hurt your business. And in fact, I did see a newspaper article about some guy who mistook a bitter quill bottle for an ammonia bottle. I think he survived, but you know, it happens. And so he wanted to make it unique in shape so that it didn't hurt the public.
Right here.
Oh,
Years ago, I was up here in Reno at an auction, many years ago, there was a bushel basket full of bottles wrapped in wicker.
oh,
We were holding up to the light, looking and trying to
Oh,
see
yeah.
that wicker to see, and I could barely see some embossing. I don't think I even knew what it was.
it would have been probably if it was an ammonia shape, probably was San Francisco gas line.
Well, they were.
Yeah.
And then the auction went out, there were 6 of them. It was a high bidder, $1. And they said, well, it's a choice, so you how many you want? Take them all. So then I filled up the wicker, and there was 3 unembossed and 3 embossed. They were just ambers, but just nice, mint condition, just a
Yeah.
fun find. Unfortunately, they didn't have whiskey labels on them, or I probably would never come.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
Wicker off, yeah.
If the wicker looks nice, you probably want to preserve that too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I still have one, I kept one embossed.
yeah, they're amazing. I have some. I don't show them here, but all different colors of ammonias underneath with wicker. So it was done fairly early back too, not when the company disappeared.
The extended base, was it being produced at the same time as, simultaneously with the standard size? And was there a reason for the extended base? Was it
So
a different
the
color?
extended base was produced the same time as the plank with all the writing on it, I believe. They look the same age, they're all applied. And the color range too also is a giveaway. That was an earlier bottle. The reason for the extended base, I believe, was, again, cost. You have these unembossed ammonia molds, and making the new mold was expensive. And so just reuse those molds and make it extended base, make it quart size. Because the skinnier old ammonia bottles are kind of sub-quart size. And so to make the quart size, you know, like you saw earlier, they sold pint, quart, and half gallon. So you had to extend the base to get a full quart in the bottle. And I believe it was cost reason. And that's why it was kind of a transition bottle to the shorter quart, shorter, wider diameter quart bottles. Right. So, yeah.
Steve, obviously clear, they need to be clear.
Yeah, I saw a clear example. Yeah, clear.
You
And
see so few of them.
they're very, very rare. Yeah. And
So I
that's-
wonder if, you know, the ones that are amethyst in color, if they were
Yeah.
clear initially, but obviously.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just an overuse of manganese
Yeah.
to make it perfect. Yeah. And that pink one is probably that, plus maybe some other chemicals that made it less amethyst and more pink.
Steve, we're at 9:30, the next person is supposed to start, so anyone that has any questions, I'm sure be welcome.